So I made every mistake possible when trying to learn to code. It cost me over a year of just spinning my wheels and trying to figure out how does coding work and how can I use it to build cool stuff. But if I had to start over again today, I would definitely take a different path, a quicker and faster path. So if you're starting out, this video is going to save you months of frustration, and I'm gonna give you the exact blueprint that I would take today, knowing all the stuff that I know now if I were starting to code again. Let's get into it. So if you're new, my name is Zazo. I've been coding for over 10 years and I've been in the tech industry for about 8 years. And I was doing a lot of nonsense and wasting a lot of time when I first started to learn to code. In this video, I'm gonna give you the exact steps that I would take in order to learn code again. Basically like a letter that I would write myself or a video that I would give myself in order to do this a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. Lego. So the first thing that I would tell myself is be careful with your mindset. Coding is hard, and I would tell myself that just so I know what to expect going in. Coding is a hard thing to learn, and it's most of the time something that most people have never really learned to do or learn in that way, right? So the key things that you really need to do is stay motivated, because it will get hard and it will get tough. And another thing is, don't compare yourself to other people, because everybody's journey is different. You'll see a lot of stuff online that, you know, these 22-year-olds, you know, just learn to code in under a couple months or, you know, a year or whatever, and they're making six figures. They're in big tech, FANG, all that, those different types of things. Drown out the noise, basically, because that is so irrelevant to your path specifically. Everybody learns at different speeds. Everybody's exposed to different things while they're growing up. So don't be too hard on yourself. Stay motivated and don't compare yourself to others. The next thing I would tell myself is get comfortable with being confused, and also tell myself that this is normal to constantly know something and then be confused. So I would just level set and really let myself know that it's okay to be confused, and you will be confused, especially when starting out. But even if you're more senior, you are still going to be confused. You're not going to know everything all the time. And then I would say, if you're ever thinking that you're not smart enough to do this, ignore that, get through it, because it will come up over and over. With you being confused so many times, the natural response is just to think, this isn't for me. I can't do this. I might as well start looking for something else to do. Like I said, it is hard. So don't be too hard on yourself. The key thing is that you don't give up. So another thing I would tell myself, being straight, honest, and transparent, is the way you learned in school is trash in the context of coding. So in school, you learn rote memorization, you know, reading something, doing something just so you can regurgitate it on a test or a exam or whatever it may be. That will not work for coding. And another thing I would say is to space out your learning. So learn something, and 2 or 3 days down the line, go back and review that concept or that thing that you did, because this really helps solidify your learning. If you go back 2 or 3 days and you don't know, you need to resharpen that knife and learn that concept and all the things that you don't understand, really get a deep understanding of how that works. And don't be demotivated if it takes you a few times to do this. Another thing is, I would give myself a heads up to know that it's exciting to learn new things, new concepts, but you still need to focus on things that you think you already learned. New stuff and learning new things gives you that dopamine hit, and it's going to keep you motivated. But what can happen a lot of the times is you'll get too far in your learning path and you'll think you're learning all these different things. But then, like I said, when you go back and try to revisit, you realize you don't know as much as you thought you did. So really in the beginning stages of learning the foundational concepts, you really want to solidify those. So now that we got to the mindset, this is the next thing that I would tell you that's going to save you months, maybe even as long as it took me. If you're still struggling to learn code and still struggling to do real things with code, is I'm going to give you basically the coding stuff that you need to learn initially. That'll give you 80% of your results. So we want to kind of work efficiently. I know that when starting to code, you try to cut all these corners, only learn the stuff that you need to know. But these are a list of some things that you're really gonna need to know. And then other things will come as a byproduct. So you'll kind of learn them just from coding, where I feel like these are the things you should start with and learn and really know. So the first thing is choose a path. This is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. Choose a clear path. Know what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, Python or JavaScript. Those two is what I normally recommend. I would recommend them to myself if I was learning to code today. The key thing is, it doesn't matter really what language you learn as long as it's one of the languages that is still widely used. However, the key thing here is staying with that language and just really kind of becoming proficient with that single language. No matter if, let's say, Java is better for this type of thing, if you've picked Python and you've been going down the Python route, try to do whatever that thing is in Java in Python. Is it maybe the most optimal? Maybe not. However, you don't need to go and switch to Java. This is what I did a lot when I first started, and this is where the first months I went crazy because I was learning the same stuff in different languages and not actually learning any depth to any language. So even though it might take a lot more work to do something in Python than Java for a specific task, do it anyway, because you're going to be learning more depth. Because let's say you do switch to Java after you've spent, let's say, 2 months in Python and you were really starting to grasp things, but you get to something and you Google it and it says, yeah, this specific project or this specific thing is better suited, Java is better suited for it. So you just switch to Java. You have to basically go all the way back to the beginning, unless you're kind of already in the game for a long time, which this is not for those people anyway. Then you have to go to Java. You have to learn the syntax, learn how it works. It's compiled language, not interpreted language. Now it kind of functions differently. It has to be set up a certain way. Now you have to go through all of that stuff and learn about Java. So you're starting back at square one when you got so far on Python, and now you have to learn all the stuff you learned in Python, and you have to learn the stuff in order to do that thing you initially wanted to do. So just stick with one language. Do not jump around from different languages, even if it is the best suited for whatever you're trying to do. This is at least at first, so you get a really deep understanding of one language. So the next thing is, these are the core concepts to learn in any language, and they might be called something different in different languages. So just keep that in mind, but a lot of them are the same thing. It's just maybe called something different in a certain language over something else. What you want to learn, obviously, is going to be syntax, variables, data types. Do not take these for granted. These will always pop up in some form of another. Once you get good enough, it feels like they're not as important because you're already thinking about it, but these are important and foundational. You want to learn conditionals, so your if-else statements. You want to learn your loops, your for, while. There's also a do, while, and all these different types of loops, but whatever it is for your language, learn your loops. Loops are going to be used all the time. Conditionals, same thing. Variables, data types, same thing. All right. Functions and scope, meaning those functions that you write, what is the scope of what you can use within the function, what you cannot use within that function, and those different types of things. Learn the scope of your application. Just learn what that means as far as what is able to see what and use what based on scope. Lists, dictionaries, and this goes into data structures. So basically learn your data structures. It may be called something else, array, hash map, whatever you want to call it. In Python, dictionaries, which once you look this up, you'll understand what's the differences between the languages, but learn your data structures, all right? Especially at the beginning, you want to learn how to manipulate strings. You also want to learn to manipulate your data structures. How do you manipulate your data structures? With algorithms. Now you see where I'm going. So DSA I don't necessarily mean that as far as like LeetCode. Like you don't have to just crank out LeetCode. LeetCode can help, but you want to get using data structures and algorithms within your applications. And this doesn't have to be anything crazy as far as like super complex, deep algorithmic stuff. That's cool, that's fine, and there's a time and place for that. But at the beginning, you want to learn these things in order to build real stuff. You can do some try, catch, or try, except. So basically some error handling, that's what you really wanna know. And you really wanna know how to work with files. So you wanna learn how to open, read, and write files. This is gonna be very useful, at least at the beginning. So now that we got those core kind of concepts and things to know, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is just start building. Start building projects that are useful and that solve real problems. Chances are there's a couple different reasons why you're going into coding. You either want to build cool stuff and you have ideas of what you want to build, or you just want to get a job because it pays well, so on and so forth. Either way, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to build real stuff and you're going to have to solve real problems, whether you're either one of those people. So with that being said, these are some things I kind of recommend you build, but I don't like to necessarily give examples because I don't like to free up the creative mind, because solving creative problems that are specific to you or specific to what you see are something that can be spoke about from your point of view in a way that any of these projects I'll list probably can't be. So take it with a grain of salt, but if you just don't have any idea on what to do, here are some things that you can do. So the first thing that I recommend that you do is a website of some sort. So with that being said, depending on whether you want to go front end, back end, or full stack, right? I'm very big on trying to make full stack applications in general when doing these projects, simply because yes, there are still front end and back end positions, but for the most part, it's going to give you such a better leg up if you can do full stack applications and you know both front end and back end. Kind of opens you up to being able to do both, right? Now, with this being said, try to focus on doing this with one language, even though it may look ugly, right? Or uglier than something that's built in React and all these different types of cool frameworks and UI libraries. Work with what you're working with and just worry about making something useful and making something, from start to finish. So the next thing that I'm gonna recommend is something like a CRM system or something with that same functionality, so that way you can practice CRUD, which if you don't know what CRUD is, it's create, read, update, delete. So this will get you very familiar with, you can make an API or a different API endpoints that when you hit those endpoints, you can create a user, basically get a user, update a user, or delete a user. These are some good things to kind of have in your tool belt when, just when you're building anything out, really, because you're going to be working with APIs all the time. You're going to need to do these types of functions and do different things with APIs. So that's what I recommend as far as another project for kind of these CRUD operations. And then I would just look at anything within your day-to-day. If you do social media, right, do something that you can post, on your social media from your application, or if it's sending emails, if you send emails, try to build something that sends emails. If you're constantly looking up the same information, use some type of web scraping in order to get some certain numbers, data, whatever you need in order to do what you do on a daily basis. So these are some good projects or some good things to start with. But like I said, let your kind of everyday life kind of determine what things that you will build, because this is what will give you the leg up in your learning. Because when you are doing something you're passionate about or that you're motivated by, you learn a lot better because you really want to get it done, because you really want to fix that problem. You really want to scratch that itch. So I recommend always going with stuff, even if you may think that it's stupid or you may think that there's no money in that. I can tell you right now, if you're in coding for the money, you're cooked, because If money is the only thing that you're chasing, you'll be spinning your wheels and always trying to think about the best thing to make the most amount of money. And I can tell you up front that software itself is not going to make you the money. There's a whole bunch of different tools and things you need to do in order to take your software into an actual product. And there's a bunch of different skills outside of coding that you'll need. So if you're strictly in it for the money, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say is good luck. All right, so now I've given you this roadmap to follow. So this right here should save you a whole bunch of time. If you like the video, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'll see you on the next one.